Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order, please. Before we get started, please silence your phones, make sure they're turned off, and all your devices are on silent mode. And then we will begin our meeting with a invocation and moment of silence. And I just want to we're going to dedicate this moment of silence tonight to former Mayor Jill Swain, who passed away 2 years ago. And so we just want to remember her tonight in our moment of silence. So please join me. Thank you very much. And now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Mr. Smith, we can have our announcements.
Good evening, everybody. Just a few announcements for you this week. So we wanted to invite everybody to our last budget engagement session that we have. It'll be right here in the Town Hall Boardroom this Wednesday from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. So it's another chance to come and give us feedback about the proposed budget, meet with the board, talk with the board, and give them direct feedback. We also, on Wednesday, have our second Mayor's Coffee Mixer. It's an opportunity to meet with Mayor Clark and discuss what's on your mind, hear updates about the town as well. It's at Kunu Coffee at 8519 Gilead Road in the Barn Door Room, and that'll be from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And we just booked our summer sessions. It'll be at the same location, same time, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., and it'll be on June 19th and July 24th. We also have had a couple of inquiries about how to report issues with different roads. So a lot of roads in town are owned by NCDOT, so residents can report issues directly to NCDOT. You can report potholes, malfunctioning traffic lights, drainage issues, and other things to DOT, and you can do so by visiting that link that we have on our PowerPoint here, or if you just go to ncdot.gov and click the contact menu option on the top of their website, it'll take you to the same page. Also wanted to remind everybody that we launched a newsletter for residents last month, the Huntersville Hub. So if you feel up to getting updates from the town every month, please go and subscribe. You can see it on our website under the public information section, or click on public input and go to our public input website and sign up that way. Also, a few police department updates. The Huntersville Police Department wanted to thank everybody for its support during National Police Week last week. Chick-fil-A, Nothing But Cakes, Uptown Catering, Red Rocks Cafe, and more offered them recognition, notes, and snacks to thank them for their service. Also, Coffee with a Cop will be at Target this Tuesday, May 21st at 10 a.m. And Officer Seth Stevens started his career with HPD last Monday. And this week is National Public Works Week. So National Public Works Week is observed during the third full week of May to recognize the importance of public works in an organized society. It takes place this year from May 19th to 25th. It's a week-long observation that sheds light on the essential role that public works employees play in our lives. So we'll be posting about that on social media throughout the week to help recognize the guys and girls of our Public Works Department. And just a brief reminder to connect with us. Sign up for our newsletter, like I said, visit our website at huntersville.org, visit our social media pages, and download the app from the App Store. Any questions?
Yeah, can I get a little bit of clarifying on the reporting malfunctioning lights and potholes and the like? You mentioned that most of our roads or a lot of our roads are owned by NCDOT. Is it the same process if the road is not owned by NCDOT?
So if it's not a state road, then it could be a town road. If it's a town road, then contacting Public Works. Public Works either via email or the website to report an issue, same kind of thing. A lot of the main or major roads in town, 73, 115, Gilead Road, those are all state maintained, so reach out to them. If you reach out to us and it's not a town road, then we'll let you know, and then we'll pass that on to DOT. But if you want to reach out to them directly, this will be a quicker way to do it.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
And one more question on that. I drive Gilead every day, and I've noticed personally, and I've had several conversations with residents about the timing of the lights and how frustrating it can be sometimes, especially Boren right now. It seems to be especially quick. I will suggest that we report that. I'll report it myself as well. I was wondering more about how traffic impacts that. You and I had a conversation about how the construction might impact that. Could you tell us a little bit about how, or explain a little bit about how, because we have some construction in town.
Yeah, we do. And it's just getting started. There will be more. So along Gilead Road, at the interchange and at US 21, there's currently construction. And so the contractor likely is responsible for timing of the signals as things change. There's lane shifts, lanes get added, lanes get moved. So the contractor's part of that, but it's not just each traffic signal operating on its own. They're coordinated between them. And the coordination, as I understand it, is from US 21 all the way out to Winfield Creek Parkway. So as one change is made on one end, if changes are not made to all the rest, that could be that they get out of sync or out of coordination. So if that happens, maybe it's the right amount of green time, but it's just off from the light before it. Same thing, report it to the state, or if you pass it to us, we're going to turn around and report it to the state because they maintain all those traffic signals.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more thing that's not related to this. Well, it's been about a year and a half now since we had the downtown master plan created, and I know we're doing so much work, and some of it we can share, some of it we can't, but I was thinking it would be really great to provide an update, maybe at the next meeting, and maybe on a quarterly basis beyond that, regarding things to come, and get excited about what we have coming to town.
Yeah, I'll get with Brian and we can give updates on the various projects that are underway or that are on hold, and then other things we may be working on just here at the board level also.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, I'll give you the floor for our Huntersville 101 graduates. I see some of them are here.
Yes, thank you. We have a handful of our most recent Huntersville 101 class here. So our Huntersville 101 is our civic education program that offers residents the opportunity to come for 7 to 8 weeks or 2 to 3 hours per week and learn more about every function of the town. Makes my communications heart happy when people want to get involved and learn more about the town. So it was a really great class. They were small but mighty. There were 8 of us that met 2 to 3 hours every week, and it was a really great, engaged group. Asked a lot of good questions, and it's my honor to call them up here to recognize them. I see a few of them out there, so Mayor Clark, if you'll join me over here to give them their certificates. And when you get your certificate, if you'll come to the front, we'll get a photo with the board after. All right, Lauren Ewald. Christine Summers. The last one I see is Emily South. So thank you guys for your time and dedication and learning more about our town. It was my first rodeo with Huntersville 101, and you were a great class to have as my first class, so I really appreciate your time and your effort in learning more about what we do. So please join me and recognize them, and I'll get a quick photo with the board.
And now we're on to item 6B, which is a proclamation for National Public Works Week. And it's kind of timely for me that I was just driving home during the pouring rain the other day and thinking to myself how grateful I am for our Public Works Department that keeps our roads safe for us. And so this is very timely. So I'll read our proclamation. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Huntersville, and whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civics leaders, and children in Huntersville to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, be it now. Now therefore, I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th to May 25th, 2024 as National Public Works Week in Huntersville, North Carolina. Let's give these guys a hand. Okay, and then we have some even more amazing folks to honor. This is a resolution recognizing the Huntersville Fire Department, who have just come on as our municipal fire department. Coming up, guys. And we are so excited to have them be a part of our town, officially be a part of our town family. They always have been a part of our family, but now they officially are. So this is a resolution recognizing their fire department. Whereas the town of Huntersville recognizes the invaluable contributions of the firefighters who have served our community with dedication, bravery, and selflessness, and whereas many firefighters have given their time and expertise serving the Huntersville Fire Department, Inc. since 1923 to ensure the safety and well-being of our residents, businesses, and visitors, and whereas the commitment and sacrifices made by these firefighters have been instrumental in protecting lives, property, and the environment from the devastating effects of fire and other emergencies, many of these years in voluntary capacity. And whereas the town of Huntersville is committed to providing the highest level of fire protection and emergency services to our community, recognizing that our firefighters are the backbone of this critical mission. And whereas the decision to transition fire protection services from Huntersville Fire Department, Inc. to the town of Huntersville reflects our deep appreciation for their service and acknowledges the importance of investing in their professional development, well-being, and continued dedication to public safety. And whereas by becoming a municipal fire department, these firefighters will have greater direct access to town resources and benefits, further strengthening our fire department and its ability to serve our community with excellence. Now, therefore, I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim and recognize the dedication and commitment of the firefighters who have served our community as members of Huntersville Fire Department, Inc., and those who will continue to serve under the town of Huntersville. I urge all residents to join me in expressing our deepest gratitude and appreciation to these firefighters for their selfless service, bravery, and unwavering commitment to the safety and well-being of our community. So let's give them a hand. We do not have any public comments for this portion of our agenda, so we'll move on to item 7, which is agenda changes, adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make the motion to adopt the agenda.
May I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And now we're on to item 8, consent agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt consent agenda.
May I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now we're on to item 9, public hearings. 9A is conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed budget for fiscal year '25. Ms. Huffman is making her way to the podium.
Jackie, you gonna work the PowerPoint slide presentation? If you can from there. And then, Mayor, we'll be prepared, obviously, for board members to ask questions. I imagine there will be some questions. I think this is round 4 or 5 of various PowerPoint presentations that either Jackie has made at a couple brew on the budgets, or either I've made from the manager's recommended budget, et cetera. So I won't read through every slide, every number. We will sort of generalize numbers instead of reading to the exact penny, and then we will open it up for questions. So, as you know, the budget needs to be balanced. The general fund for the budget is roughly $75 million. This includes various other electric, HFFA, transportation reserve, land development. Those are remaining flat, and the total budget is roughly $110 million, which is 0.3% higher than prior year. Property taxes recommended in this budget, as you look at the last bullet point, is 22.75 cents. How do we get from 17.6 to 22.75? That's what this slide is about. I'd recommended a 19-cent tax rate in '24. The board chose to do revenue neutral, but we have a lot of debt that we're taking on this year with the town hall debt that is coming out of the ground now, which is approximately $30 million, and then the voter-approved bonds of $58 million, which is roughly $50 million for transportation, $8 million for Parks and Rec. That is roughly 2.8 cents. That was when the voters went to vote on that and approved that. You know, that was very clearly stated on there that this could include a 2.8 cent tax increase. And then we brought in fire. We had no choice. Obviously, with fire, we just couldn't fill seats. Unfortunately, you know, we had folks doing other things, spending time with their family, et cetera. We just couldn't put people in seats, and the only way to get to that was to bring them on full-time and bring in the part-time firefighters. So this roughly is 1.2 cent on the tax rate, and then also continuing to increase our police presence. Knock on wood, we're finally full. I don't know if I can ever say that we've been full in 6 years, maybe 10 years prior to that. That's been a long time, but we are obviously beginning now to get over that number, and we are proposing to hire 10 police officers in this fiscal year. So the 10 police officers, roughly a 1.15 cents tax increase. Add all those together to 2.8. The fire and the police, and then you get up to the 22.75. This slide talks about what, if you had an average home of 460, was your value of your house, what kind of impact would the 5.15 cent tax increase do to you on a monthly basis, and that's roughly $20 on a monthly basis, additional costs associated with that. There are no changes to the fees. We have garbage fees, solid waste fees, vehicle fees, and stormwater fees. They're going to remain flat at the figure you see in front of you. Stormwater fee is sort of based on your impervious surface. So based on your impervious surface, there's different tiers related to stormwater fees, but they are to remain the same. As far as electric fund, electricities, no residential, commercial, or industrial changes. The only thing that will come back to you probably in the coming months is we're finally moving into solar. Now, we've been a little bit behind the times on solar, so we are going to come back to you with some options for solar options and incentives and rates associated with that. And then as far as personnel, number of positions, we're looking at a total of 14 positions. Part of those would be for a full year, part of those would be for half a year. You can see the 8 new positions are for a whole year, 6 proposed for half a year. I couldn't hire 10 officers today. If you told me to hire them right now, there's just no way possible. With the process you have to go through with onboarding and the background checks, et cetera, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. So what you see here is those are phased in and some of the other positions also. As far as raises and COLA and merit, what's being proposed as this budget is 4.1% COLA. that is consistent with the 2023 CPI, and then a 2% merit. This is pretty in line with Mecklenburg County, Cornelius, Davison, Pineville, all the surrounding towns. This is right in line with that. It may be some slightly below, some slightly higher. And then we just finished up the previous board asked us to look at a pay study and get that completed. We brought that back. I think it was at the last May 6th meeting. We brought back those findings, and so there's some dollar figures, like roughly $450,000 that are associated with bringing folks up to the appropriate range and making some adjustments of folks that need to be adjusted. Do that pay study, and then some mandated retirement increases. As far as operating expenditures and debt, we are converting, as you know, converting a nonprofit fire department over to a town fire department. We're bringing over those assets. We're bringing over their vehicles, the land, the buildings that, they had the one building that we're bringing over, Station 2, and then obviously all the assets that we're bringing over. Also, as far as sidewalk repairs, we're upping our sidewalk repair pot of money. Typically, we fund roughly $500,000 that. We're increasing that to $800,000. We also have in the budget also $500,000 associated with new sidewalks. We are funding, putting some funds towards attainable housing. If you recall, we also had some funds that we received from Alma Adams from the federal government for potential land purchase for attainable housing. We will use this money here for potential seed money. Could be working with the CDC, CRC, and I'm gonna call it the committee in Cornelius. Could be we do rehabs. We already do rehabs in joint with Habitat. We could do Habitat projects. We could look at seed money for partnering with other development, along with the land that we have associated to partner with that to do seed money. And then as far as some of our prior existing debt will go down about $82,000. And then the first year payments on Town Hall debt service payment is roughly $2.9 million. And then the 2023 bond referendum, which we approved $58 million in debt, will be roughly $1.5 million in interest payments scheduled for June 1st. There are typically 2 payments associated with that, but by the time if we're looking at issuing that debt in October, we'd only look at 1 payment this year. Following year would be 2 payments that will come up. As far as major CIP funded project, most of these are, if you recall, when the voters approved bond projects, it's roads and parks. And our goals, when the board set the goals, roads, parks, police, fire, safety. These projects here, the CIP projects, I won't read through all these. You have seen these at least 4, 5, 6 times. The public's seen these. Don't get hung up on, if you see this number, is that the total cost of that project? It varies. Some of these projects, it may be the total cost. Other projects, it may just be a portion of the project. Some of these projects have been going on for years. We may be in design phase, we may be in right-of-way phase, we may be in construction phase. So this could be just a portion of that project. So what you'll want to do is look deep into the CIP. You'll be able to see how each one of these projects has a sheet tied to it. It tells you the stage it's in. It tells you the total funding for the project, et cetera. But several of these projects are bond-funded projects. As far as operating capital funded, this is more equipment. Could be police cars, a dump truck, et cetera, various park and rec related items. You're here maybe late on tonight, pay-as-you-go type items. This is a fine example of pay-as-you-go type items. All these items, you pay for a truck. We're probably not going to finance a police car, those kind of things. And the biggest item on here is replastering the 50-meter pool at HFFA. And I won't read all these. These are typical you've seen before. And then the next steps on the budget. What I would tell you, obviously, the 200-plus page document is available online. I would focus on the manager's message, which is about 8 or 9 pages. But if you've got all the time in the world, go read all 200-plus pages. Tonight's a public hearing, obviously. And then, as Jackie said, we have a budget in the boardroom May 22nd, another opportunity for citizens to come ask questions, and then hope to be in a position on June 3rd for the board to consider adopting the budget. And that's it. We will open it up because I'm sure there's some questions related to all this fun stuff.
Rivers?
Yes, so going back into the slide, I noticed you stated that the fund balance currently is at 75 million. Am I stating that correctly?
The total budget is, the total general fund budget is $75 million. Our general fund balance is $66 million today, right now, in total.
And how does that compare in over the last 5 years?
I've been here since 2016. If memory serves, in those 8 years, we have made a contribution to fund balance. That's accounting speak for it's gone up every year except one, and 1 year it went down about $1.5 million in total fund balance.
Right, and you may want to jump into available fund balance so that, while you're talking about fund balance.
Huntersville is one of the few places that I know who put a lot of emphasis on total fund balance. We're required to submit a copy of our audit report annually to the state. The division of the state treasurer's office called the Local Government Commission receives a copy of our audit report. I've never seen or heard them discuss the theory of total fund balance. What they consider more important is fund balance available. That's the portion of your budget that you're allowed to spend or to allocate spending on. Our fund balance, I have a copy in front of me that it peaked, I believe it peaked in 2020, at the end of fiscal 2020. Our available fund balance was about, if memory serves, including PAL bill, it was 106, 107% of our total budget. Without PAL bill, it was 99 and change. Let's, for purposes here, call that 100%. Local Government Commission doesn't have a lot of luck with having every municipality submit their audit report on time. So the most recently audited year available is FY22, and our fund balance as a percentage of our total budget in FY22 was 79 and change. I'm gonna call that 80%. So our fund balance available is declining. The Local Government Commission takes all that information they receive from all municipalities and creates statistics. There are municipalities in this area who have exceeded our available fund balance, so ours used to be higher, and they have crossed us. Each municipality is encouraged by the state of North Carolina to make their own judgment on exactly what their fund balance should be. I'm happy to provide you resources on the things that the Local Government Commission suggests should impact the level of fund balance you choose. Some of them, think about it at the coast. If you're more susceptible to hurricanes, they would recommend you have a higher fund balance. If you're in a particularly growing area where you have significant capital needs, they would suggest that you have a higher fund balance. Those are two of the things, and I'm happy to show you more about. We'll beleaguer this point if we're done with that one. What else can I answer for you about fund balance and otherwise?
I'm gonna have to tackle Jackie if you ask too many questions. She's that good.
Jackie, can you, just for the folks in the room that may not know, tell us what Powell bill funds are?
When you go to purchase gas in the state of North Carolina, there is a federal and state gas tax component of what you're paying, that $3.31, whatever it is per gallon that's advertised on the sign. I don't want to tell you how much I think it is. It rotates, I believe, quarterly. And so when you pay for a gallon of gas, a portion of that is gas tax. That gas tax goes back to the state of North Carolina, and the state of North Carolina sends a portion of that back to us each year, and we refer to that as our POWEL bill, P-O-W-E-L-L. It's not power. It's our POWEL bill distribution. We generally receive that in 2 increments, and one on October 1st and one on about January 1st. 2 equal installments. There is a number of road miles we maintain component, and there is a population component. I think one of them 75%, others 25%.
Funds are not available for any purpose, though, right? They're just for roads. Just for the folks in the room.
It is
who don't
very,
know.
okay, thank you. That it is very restricted how we spend that money. So we could not spend that money to pay the power bill at Town Hall. We could not spend that money necessarily to buy a police car. We're only allowed, we have a specific list of expenditures that it's allowed to be spent on. Generally, repaving roads, it would be allowed. We could build a new town-maintained road if we chose to. As a general rule, we don't do that. We can build town sidewalks. We could spend that money on DOT road sidewalks. There is certainly we could spend it for snow removal. There's a very specific list of items eligible and not eligible. And so when you talk about the difference between total fund balance and available fund balance, PAL bill fund balance is not available for necessarily any expenditure, and so that's generally one of the first things that comes out in that difference in calculation between total and available fund balance.
Quarles?
Clarifying on fund balance. The elephant in the room, our former mayor posted some misleading rhetoric on his political Facebook page. And I did invite him to come out tonight to speak with us, as well as come to approve on the budget. In regards to fund balance, he posted that Apex keep a fund balance at 25%. Well, the factual number for Apex, what they keep is 61.35%. They also have a tax rate at 44%, which is double our tax rate. What he did was he cherry-picked and listed Apex, Greensboro, Asheville, Chapel Hill, Charlotte, and Cary, and those numbers were also wrong. What he didn't do was to compare Huntersville with Cornelius, which is at 88%, Raleigh, 97.86%, Mount Holly, 115%, and Indian Trail at 143%. So my question to you is, would you say that a municipality set their amount they want to keep in the fund balance based on their goals or what their dreams as far as priority for that town is?
Okay, so there is a difference between your total fund balance and your available fund balance. And Bobby, I've got some additional information that I can display, and I'm not real sure I heard you ask, but one of the things, so in that subdirectory that says fund balance policy, LGC recommendation fund balance, the second from the bottom, I think that's going to be a PDF that I don't know how to save in the correct direction, and so you're going to need to rotate it 90 degrees, I think. I want you to see that. I've been a municipal employee for 29 years. You all have heard me fumble before with what the state recommends is you set as your fund balance policy. This year, for the first time ever, I went with about 3 of you to a School of Government class on essentials of municipal government. And this was one of the slides. I've been in municipal government 29 years. I'm not sure I'd ever seen this slide before. And so if you all get that rotated so we can read it. So the Local Government Commission and the School of Government is going to recommend that you adopt a fund balance policy. Fund balance policy is your target. It is your goal that you seek to achieve. Some years you might achieve that goal, some years you might fall short, and some years you might exceed it. And so the authoritative literature is that top bullet point, you should adopt a policy, and that bottom bullet point. You've heard a lot of people say before, well, you only need 8% fund balance, and the state says you only need 8%. That's not so. 8% is the equivalent of 1 month's expenditures. Especially if you were a smaller government, I suspect you would not make payroll if you only had 8% fund balance. And so I will admit to you, until I started looking at the research to be able to tell you, I'm an accountant, I really want to be able to say the number is X, you should totally be this. This is as specific as I've ever seen the Local Government Commission get, and you should look at your peer group, and you should be within 50% of, or more of what they are. I interpret that's what you should set as your target, okay? So who's your population group? The state of North Carolina, again, I talked earlier about preparing statistics. Bobby, in that same subdirectory, I believe there's one Excel file. I think there's one and one only. Honestly, it's a gigantic file, but so the state of North Carolina has compared us. They separate municipalities with electric funds from municipalities that do not have electric funds. We have an electric fund. I don't remember what row number we're on, Bobby, but I believe it's in alphabetical order. So if you go up and find Huntersville, so we're right there. What is that, row 26? Okay, so remember earlier I said we're about at 80% right now, 79 and change. So we're actually at 79.55. Now, Bobby, you were at the right place. Now that we've established that excluding Powell bill, that if you'll go down to the bottom, please, sir, where you were before I had you go up and find us. And so what does the local government commission say? They said you should be pretty close to your population group. So down here about row 45, 40, okay, here we go. So here's what other municipalities are. And so the lowest is 8.71%. I suspect we'd be on the unit assist list. Let's don't go there, please. So some local unit has 150% of their general fund expenditures in total fund balance. I don't recommend that one either. The average is 46. I don't like doing math in my head, but that tells me that the LGC would recommend that our fund balance policy be at least 23% or higher. Patty and I spoke with a gentleman today who wrote the 1990s manual on what the local government commission says that should be. And I will tell you a couple of the quotes that stuck out to me that he said. One of them is, number one, the local government commission has never in the history of time sent a "you have too much fund balance" letter to any taxing agency in North Carolina. Now, you don't have taxing authority, maybe they got one, but so that tells me the local government commission, probably the 156% people didn't even get that letter. I'm not suggesting we should be 156, but he used a term that will stick with me for a while now. If you are 56% below, if you're 50% below that 46.7%, or you're 50% higher, then they consider you to be within a normal range. Technically, at 80%, we would be a little bit over the 50% higher. Bobby, I think it's about 3 tabs over. We happen to be a municipality that has an electric fund. I wrote the manual, also told us today that in the late 90s, when the manual got written, that the electric fund municipalities without an electric system got annoyed with being compared to the municipalities that had an electric system because they were pulling the average down. So if you'll find for us the municipalities without an electric system, please, sir. That's the Raleigh quote we heard a few minutes ago. Let's see, I think it's one more over. Let's keep going. Without an electric system, okay? And that's budgets over 10 million. Say that row 6, that would be the population group we would fall in. So if you'll go down to the bottom and let's see what their average is. And so their average is 58%. So normal range. So if you're within 50% less than that 58%, or 58% higher, if memory serves, again, I don't like doing math in my head, especially publicly, that's about 86%. And so I would argue our available fund balance is within the range that they suggest it should be in. If you want to open the discussion on what fund balance available, what our target should be, I would recommend then rather than measure on total fund balance, we do something more traditional that the state recommends and do on available fund balance. I'm happy to get into some more specific details about what we're using our fund balance for if you'd like to hear about them. Bobby, in that same subdirectory, is it in that subdirectory? Do we have, let's see, all right. Do we have, yes, that's exactly what I want. How could you tell? Okay, so this is our audit report that's available on our website today. And so it's really important then that you understand fund balance, right? So here is, I think technically, think about it, we have a table of contents and we have some beginning pages. I think it's page 42, but look for page 19 if you go pull it up off our website. So that first column is our general fund balance. And so the prepaids is not available to be spent effectively because you've already spent it. I'm going to take you all the way down to the bottom. See where it says unassigned $23 million? So when we tell you that the board-adopted fund balance policy says we're going to set aside 40% of our total revenue budget, and that's what we're going to set aside, that's what $23 million represents. So when you hear somebody say it shouldn't be 40%, it should be a lower percent, let's drop it to 20%. Effectively, they're telling you you need to cut that 23 in half, and it should be, what, 11 and a half? Okay, so your fund balance policy says you're going to set aside 40%, and anything over that you will set aside for a capital reason, all right? So you see where it says committed capital projects, $10 million? That's the portion of your fund balance that you have available to spend on some compelling project. Every other designation of fund balance, it's already got a purpose for it. And so that's not available for you to spend. Bobby, the bifocals are betraying me. Do we have in that subdirectory the March financial statements Patty distributed? Okay, again, all right. So if you go to page 2. So for board members since, I'm sure, probably a decade, for a long time before I came to work at the town, board members get monthly financial statements from Patty. You don't get them in June because she's, eventually you get audited financial statements for June. In July, she's working on audit and getting the budget keyed, so you don't usually get them in July. But in September, you get interim financial statements, you get monthly financial statements. The ones you receive in September are for August. She distributed today April ones. But, and so I don't think you've had time to look at them. Frankly, I've not had time to look at them. But the last version of the financial statement she sent to you and that she distributes to directors looked exactly like this. Now, let me tell you what I see when I see these financial statements. What is it, third row up from the bottom? General fund balance appropriated. So what is the total amount of your fund balance that you have appropriated to spend? It's $30 million. We don't accomplish capital projects at a pace that pleases me. I wish it was faster. But when we don't finish it, we roll that budget over into the next budget year so we finish that capital project. So if your audited financial statement said you had $10 million available to be spent, you didn't stop at $10 million. You've allocated another $30 million. Now, so I would argue then, in effect, what you've done is if you considered that 40% fund balance policy a hard stop, you couldn't have funded those projects. Because we know they're going to be slower in the rate that we accomplish them, we go ahead and let you budget to already spend more of that. And so we didn't stop you at 10. Technically, I would argue we probably stopped you at 40 million because you've not just allocated that appropriated fund balance, you've also appropriated reserve for encumbrances. So I have said that I'm concerned that I will have directors who are worried, oh my gosh, we're not going to make payroll because we have violated our policy and we have exceeded it. That's not really true. Please don't slow down on the capital projects. We need to get those done. But when somebody tells you we need to change our policy, you change the policy if you want to. Effectively, we've treated that as a target. If we were able to magically get a lot of capital projects done all at one time, you would see our fund balance go down. We'd be below our target, and we'd be working to get back up to it. And so please don't let people make you believe that there are projects going undone because we set aside that 40% and didn't touch it. Effectively, we have allocated it. Those projects just aren't done yet. I'm going to take a breath. What's the next question?
Well, I had 4 questions on fund balance, but it's as if you knew my questions. You've answered all 4 of them.
Oh, wow.
It does. Any other questions? Commissioner Hunt?
Jackie, Anthony mentioned the pay-as-you-go capital projects that we're already engaging in. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I'd be glad to. Capital projects, so when we construct, purchase equipment, when we acquire capital, for me, there's about 4 different ways we can go about getting that capital. We can issue debt for it, might be an installment financing, might be general obligation bonds, might be a different type of bond, but you can issue some type of debt, that you can get it that way. You can find somebody like CRTPO who will give you a grant to at least assist you with acquiring capital. The other 2 methods are you can acquire capital from what I'm going to refer to as currently available funds. There's 2 sources of currently available funds. That's either current revenue, like property taxes and fees that we just talked about in the budget, or using your fund balance. Okay, so Anthony just displayed for you a slide that said there's operating capital. It was a PowerPoint document, so it didn't have a total on it, but that operating capital is $1,999,000 if you choose to go add that up. So there's more than a penny on the tax rate of operating capital already funded in the manager's recommended budget, this slide right here. If you'll go back to the slide before that, Bobby, I'm sorry, opposite direction, the one before it that has the major capital projects on it. So I think it's 2 back from there. Here we go, right here. If you look at the first column, every single one of those projects, with the exception of sidewalks, the bottom project, are bond debt-funded projects. The sidewalks is a pay-as-you-go, fund balance funded project. On the right column, every single one of those projects but one, Rama Church Road Park, we propose to do with current, either current receipts or current fund balance. If you sum the ones then that we're doing on a pay-as-you-go basis, that's $2,522,000. And so there's, what is that, ballpark, more than a penny, not quite a penny and a half on the tax rate. That would be over a penny and a half, wouldn't it? There are a penny and a half-ish worth of projects on this slide that are funded on a pay-as-you-go basis. So $2 million on the previous slide, 2.5 on this side, $4.5 million in projects that are funded on a pay-as-you-go basis in this proposed budget.
Thank you. I just have 2 more questions. Can you talk about our employee per citizen ratio and how this might impact employee morale and retention?
How our total number of employees compares to other places' total number of employees? Yes. Bobby is the author of a spreadsheet, and I'd be tickled to swap places with him. So for the top 20-ish in population municipalities in the state of North Carolina, so we don't allocate the time to update this spreadsheet every year. And so the most recent year we have available is FY23's budget. And so if you look at column, the final column, M, employees per 1,000. So we've taken how many employees each of these municipalities had in FY23's budget and divide that by their population. So our number is 3.2. If there is a lower municipality in the state of North Carolina in our population range, I don't think so. I don't think there's one near us. Okay, now, window behind the curtain. How do we accomplish such a low number of employees per 1,000? Remember how I said we haven't updated this for FY24? All of these municipalities, did it stop at 25 in population, Bobby? Top 25 in population? So every single one of these municipalities have had a paid municipal fire department, employee fire department for years. Most of these municipalities probably have water and sewer employees. We don't, and I don't know when we would have them again. And other municipalities choose some to provide some services that we don't, especially with employees. My understanding is that the City of Concord, until the current budget year, chose to contract out their solid waste services, and this year decided to bring that in-house. And so their employee count will have increased a fair amount if they're doing that with employees now. Concord and Mooresville are examples of municipalities who choose to have municipal golf courses. Just to maintain a golf course, you're going to have more employees. There are different municipal services that are provided, but three big factors that will change your employee count per thousand is how you're accomplishing fire protection services, water and sewer services, and solid waste.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question, at the Brew on the Budget that we've had, you gave an equation that'll help people figure out what the direct impact to them will be, because I think sometimes people get scared. They're like, oh, 25%, 27%, or whatever it is. So if you could share that, it might help people put it in perspective.
If you will round to the nearest thousand, whatever your tax value, not your sales value, not what you paid for your house, but if your tax value is $350,000, if you put 350 in a calculator and divide by 25, whatever that number is, if you'll multiply that number by 1.07, that will tell you what the monthly equivalent of your increase, the impact of this 5.15 cents tax increase will be. I didn't do that with you, but I'd be glad to. So that'd be 350 divided by 25 equals, I get 14 times 1.07. I get $14.98. So remember Anthony had a slide that said if your home value is $460, then the monthly equivalent of that increase is $1975. Well, if your home value is not $460, that don't help you much. But if you'll take your value and don't put the thousands place in there, just round it up to the nearest thousand. So 350. If your home value is 351, put in 351. 351,000, just put in 351. Divide by 25, and then multiply by 107, and that's the monthly impact of the 5.15 cent increase.
Thank you for sharing that. The last thing I just wanted to say before we move on, there has been some discussion of allocating funds for sustainability, and I just wanted to point out that there is some discussion about hiring a sustainability consultant, but we have grant funds allocated for that purpose, so there will not be taxpayer dollars used for that. Thanks.
Oh, Commissioner Quarles has an additional question with his fund balance.
I thought you wanted to stay on fund balance. And I just want to stay with the elephant in the room. And I'm sorry my approach is different tonight, but again, I don't want our constituents misled, and we must make sure we do the right thing to inform our citizens on factual information. The former mayor also posted, and I'm going to quote, "We delayed issuing the debt until 2020 at an interest rate which was the lowest in North Carolina history. The action saved Huntersville taxpayers millions of dollars from 2016 to 2020. Now that sounds impressive, but could you confirm or deny if at any time debt was issued between 2016 and 2020?
Bobby, I'm gonna need another assist, please, sir. There are so many things that you can get out of an audit report. Have you ever met a bigger fan of an audit report than me? So if you'll go into 16 bond issues, so I have 11 pieces of compelling evidence to me about whether or not there was a 2016 bond issue. I'm gonna start with an audit report. If you pull up the first item, please, sir, the 16 audit report. So our fiscal year runs July 1. So fiscal 2016 would have run from July 1, 2015 to June 30, 2016. All right. So in our audit report, it ended at June 30, 2016, but we are required to put, if there is a significant event that has impacted the town's financial condition, before we issue that audit report, we're required to put what is governmental or CPA accountant speak as a subsequent event note in. And so the very last note in our 2016 audit report is what you see right here. So we issued bonds on September 21st, 2016. The $2.7 million, the number in the middle, is a refunding, so that's not really new debt. But the $865 and the $7810 is absolutely new debt. And our audited by an independent auditor, audit report would tell you that we issued bonds in calendar 2016. Bobby, one more, if you'll take me to the 2017 audit report. We have a page in our 2017 audit report. At the very, very top, it says that this is our bond fund. Patty and I called it Fund 94. Okay, so it's effectively the 2016 bond issue. We're not very inventive with names because we issued them in 2016. We named that bond fund the 2016 bond fund. Middle of the page here, see where it says other financing sources? Bonds issued in the current year column. So from the subsequent event note, that would tell you that we issued $8,675,000 in bonds. What I like about looking at it from an audit report perspective is this tells you what we use the money for. Well, up in the expenditure section, we were finishing the rec center, and so we budgeted to spend some of that money on finishing the rec center. Fire station number 4. Was a significant portion of what we use those bonds for. Culvert improvement, we started Gilead Road West with $300,000 that was just going to be a culvert. That has ballooned, and we continue to work on Gilead Road West, and that funding of Main Street was a significant portion of the 2016 bond issue. I have 11 other items that you can go through. I feel like I've made the case. There was a 2016 bond issue. We got a good rate at the time. We were pleased with it. The interest rate stayed low for a very long time. This was a respectable rate. I'm happy to go through more of these if you'd like to see them.
Excellent. My last thing is, during 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, I'm pretty sure the tax rate at that time was 30 cents.
Bobby, I have something. I have a PowerPoint that's not in a subdirectory. Right there. If you go to the second slide, please, sir. This tells you from the year 2000 what the Huntersville tax rate was. And so in 2020, now I should have, forgive me please, 2025 is not an adopted rate. Y'all have not approved what the tax rate is. But if you approve as presented, it would be 2.75. So this will tell you what the tax rate was in all those years, or all the last 25 years. I hope that responds to your question.
Commissioner Bergman?
I think someone's reading my mind because I was actually going to ask about this slide because I remember seeing it at the last, I think it was at the Brew and the Budget, right? And I kind of like the historical aspect that it gives, and actually my question ties into this chart because I know last year was a property reval year for the county. Are there any other years represented on this chart that were also reval years?
I've been a Mecklenburg County I've been a municipal employee in a Mecklenburg County since the year 2000. My recollection is that prior reval years were 2004, 2012, 2020, and then 24. I don't know when they were before that, and we don't have those up here anyway. But thank you for bringing up. So when the values were going up, it was not unusual for the rate to go down. So I wouldn't want you to look at this chart in isolation without thinking about what the value changes were too. That's completely fair.
So, and then I was wondering, because, when we're talking about tax rates and, increasing it, it's often folks who are on fixed incomes that have the hardest time with that. And I think I had mentioned at the last meeting about possibly looking into a program similar to what Davidson has, that tax assistance program that's funded not by tax dollars but by donations. And I was just wondering if that's something that there's a chance to look into, or if we have any kind of updates on a program like that.
I know, Bobby, you did a little research on that, right? On the Davidson program?
Yeah, it was through the Davidson Community Foundation, which we don't have a nonprofit organization. That's what we're continuing to be from a nonprofit, but I don't know that like you want to jump in, but we can do that. There's a county extension for veterans and seniors and things like that, but we're a little more precluded from kind of assistance, direct payments with those.
Do you know if legally, is there a way for the town to have like a setup, not necessarily a whole foundation, which would take a lot of work, but kind of like a separate fund that's donation-driven?
So as far as the town being able to use town dollars just to make donations, even for charitable purposes, we can't due to constitutional limitations. As Bobby mentioned, there could be a potential to partner with a nonprofit that is offering a service similar to how we do with the nonprofits that will be coming before you all for consideration in the next month or so. But typically, we are constrained by the constitutional limits, which require us to basically only be able to give funds in exchange for a public purpose. That's something that we can do some additional research on to see about options for how it may be structured. But if I were speaking just without having done that research, the more likely scenario would be partnering with a nonprofit in some form or fashion.
Okay, yeah, and just to be clear, like I'm not advocating in any way to use tax dollars for something like that, donations only. And then I have one more question for a little bit in the weeds and the overarching, in relation to the Parks and Rec budget. Hi, Michael. And I was just curious because, and being on Parks and Rec, looking at the goals, and it seems like a big priority right now is definitely decreasing the number of people that are on wait lists for programs. And I just kind of wanted to hear some more information about how it looks like the increasing some part-time hours and, amount of hours, how that can help.
So some of the programs, such as summer camp, are really hands are tied from expanding based on facilities. So the hope is once new town hall is built, this is remodeled, we can expand on summer camps. Some of the other programs, we're offering more sessions, which having additional staff allows us to do. So some of those programs we're able to knock down some of the waiting lists, such as like preschool programs, mini athletes, stuff like that, after school programs. So those we're able to take off, but summer camp is the one we really don't have a way to expand yet.
But do you do think for some of the other programs that this budget will help improve some of the wait lists for those?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Dumas?
I think this will be a question for Anthony. So we're growing really quickly. We hear that all the time. We see it, we feel it. Wouldn't the additional people moving here help us with our tax revenue? Is there an issue with expenses? Like, why is it that we need to raise the taxes if we have so many people moving here?
So we're growing. I think Jackie had showed some slides before where we're, from a growth rate standpoint, we're the highest in the county. I think it was 3-point-some%.
We deleted that slide from the manager's presentation of the budget at the last meeting. Mecklenburg County's assessor's office sends to us the what I'm going to refer to as a natural growth in the system, the building rate, the change in value. If you knocked one house down and built a bigger house there, or if you just built a house on raw land, so there's something to tax that wasn't there in the prior year. Huntersville is growing at a rate of 3.2%, which is a higher growth rate than the county average and the other municipalities, and that's a slide that we had at the last meeting that we didn't put in this one. So that's 3%. And so if you go back and review what we estimated a penny on the tax rate generated for FY24, the current year, that would have been $1.5 million. And because we have that 3% growth rate, we estimate that a penny on a tax rate this year generates $1.6 million. So for every penny, we have an additional $100,000.
So with all the capital and the various public safety items we're doing, that just a 3% growth alone doesn't cover that, or 3.2.
Right, so from my perspective, it's with more people comes more expense. We need to widen, and especially with how quickly we've grown, we have to widen the roads, and we've fallen behind in keeping up with that stuff, so it costs more.
Yeah, I mean, cost of everything is going up, unfortunately. Yep. And we're going to push orange barrels everywhere, which is going to be painful, but we have to.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to move on to our public comments. For those that speak, you have 3 minutes, and we will begin with Michelle Blumenthal.
My name is Michelle Blumenthal, and I live at 8828 Oakham Street, where I've lived since 2000. I guess the first thing I want to say is that I vehemently oppose wasteful spending, but I don't think this is wasteful spending. I support this budget and the tax increase to pay for the new town hall, which the majority of the previous board committed to building, to pay for roads and greenways, which we voted for the bond. We put it on a ballot, they put it on the ballot, and we voted for it. Also to pay for a municipal fire department, which we need and which the previous board initiated a plan to establish. And also to pay for adjusted town staff salaries, to pay staff what they deserve. We must pay for the services we need and have committed to. We need to pay our bills. We need to pay for the police and the fire department. And as we just heard, we have a lower tax rate than the top 25 municipalities in the state. And with this increased tax rate, we still will. So I know there are people who are, they hate the idea of a tax increase, but if it's necessary and if it's not wasteful, then we have to pay our bills. That's it.
Thank you. And next we have John Foster. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Good evening. I told myself earlier this afternoon that this was a very difficult day for me to say what I wanted to say and try to say it in 3 minutes. I could stand and listen to Jackie all day. Anybody listen to her and don't understand what she said, check somebody, and you got a problem. I've lived in Huntersville for over 30 years, and it's obvious that we have grown that whole 30 years. Some things that I wanted to say, and I played with all kind of numbers this week, but after listening to her, I scratched those. I'm not going to even try to compete with her. But what I'm going to tell you guys and everything else, you were elected to do a job. I think you're very capable of doing that job. I highly recommend that you approve the budget, stay on course on the things that you've already started, don't listen to the naysayers, and continue to do the things that this town needs. We need sidewalks, we need better roads, we need continue to improve infrastructure. I look at car tags every day, and boy, the car tags that I see from out of state is just truly amazing. I talk to people every day in our store that have moved here. Why did you move here? Where did you move from? And it's obvious that over the 30-plus years that I've lived here, Huntersville have done a lot of things right. But if we don't continue to spend money, if we don't continue to do the things that need to be done, we can't delay them. Doing the city hall right now, I'm glad you guys getting credit for it. But how many millions of dollars is that city hall costing taxpayers by us delaying it? Probably 2 terms. Should never have been delayed. We should be in it today. So I'm going to tell you, continue to do what you're doing, stay the course, don't listen to all the naysayers and everything else. No one in this world cannot make it without having budget increases from time to time. The things that we talked about and the things that she talked about, I think they're necessary. Do what you need to do. Don't worry about what other people are saying. Make sure it get into the newsletter and publicize it wherever you can, and you'll be okay when you all get ready to be reelected. Stay the course and continue to do the job that you're doing.
Just a reminder that we don't clap. Thank you. Our next public comment is Eric Willoughby. You have 3 minutes. He left, possibly. Okay, we'll mark him off. Mr. Gammon, you are next with 3 minutes.
Frank Gammon, 30-year resident of Huntersville. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Roberts, I'm here to request that you eliminate the solid waste fee. The $154 fee is in fact a property tax, which adds 2+ cents to the established property tax, which brings the proposed tax rate to nearly 25 cents. Former Commissioner Lance Munger stated during last year's budget discussion that the solid waste fee impacts those living on fixed incomes the most, and I agree. I'm glad you didn't raise it this time. I just want you to get rid of it. Eliminating the solid waste fee provides relief to all citizens, especially those living on limited incomes. Rising water raises all boats, the saying goes. I believe the budget you are proposing with the increased tax rates can absorb the elimination of the tax waste property tax. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And last but not least, we have Mayor Sarah McCauley.
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, I respectfully request that you not pass this budget, that you go back and look at it, you take out all the, well, it would be nice to have this, or I think that's a good idea, or let's move forward with that. You're hung up on the tax rate. Look at the dollars that it's bringing in. Look at all of the constructions. I went out of town for a week and there were 6 new houses, 8 new houses being built in front of me. Not the ones on the east toward the school, but the ones across Gilead Road. The economic news that I read describes the area that the time that we're in now as the white collar depression. That is true. There are people losing their jobs because businesses and corporations are moving to other locations, and they have aged up a little bit because they stayed with the companies and they cannot find jobs. The election, well, wait a minute, excuse me. The tax bills go out in North Carolina in July. They're due by September 1. You're going to raise the tax rate and bring in a lot more money that have come online since last year. Talk about elections, on November the 5th of this year, you have a bond issue out there. I believe some of it is for roads. A lot of the budget that I was able to look at online has road construction to North Carolina state highway roads. They're not on the town. What I think is going to happen is that you're going to end up turning that money over to the state to do, because you cannot contract to change a road, a North Carolina road. The filing starts on December Monday, December the 5th, after supposedly a bond issue passed. If that bond, I don't think that bond issue will pass, because you're going to raise the tax rate, you're going to bring in more money, and then you turn around and asking them to give you more money. I respectfully request that you go back and look at this. Don't get hung up on the tax rate. The tax rate that they showed you that decreased some years back was because in 2008 we had reevaluation. Yes, the tax rate went down because of reevaluation went way up. We had reevaluation in 2023. The tax stayed the same, I believe. Look at the money, not the rate. Thank you. Don't pass this.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, well, that is the, concludes our public comments for that item 9A. We have item 9B, which is conduct a public hearing on petition Annex 24-01, and the staff has requested that be continued to June 3rd. Mr. Richards?
Yes, due to a clerical error at the Charlotte Observer, our legal ad was not able to be run. We've got that corrected. We're just asking for that continuance so we can be in compliance with the law.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, you have to make a motion. All right. Next.
I make a motion to move petition Annex 24-01 to 6 p.m. on June 3rd, 2024 at Town Hall.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Now we're on to item 10A, other business, which is consider adopting a public records policy and fee schedule. Commissioner Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor. What the board is going to be asked to approve this evening is a new public records policy and fee schedule. And Ms. Sloop here in a minute is going to go through some things, but I want to kind of put things in perspective to let those who are watching or here to, first of all, understand what a public record is, what we don't actually show as a part of a public record, confidential information, et cetera. Basically, to understand the redaction process and then understand what has been coming to the town over the last year in terms of number of requests, complexity of requests, et cetera. And then look at fee schedules, what other municipalities do, and what we are recommending this evening. So with that, Ms. Sloop.
Good evening, Board. As Commissioner Walsh stated, this board requested that the legal department research what other jurisdictions were doing with regards to public records and fee schedules, and also to prepare a draft policy for consideration. First, though, it would make sense to let those listening and in the audience know what is a public record. The definition of a public record is set forth in the North Carolina General Statutes at Section 132-1. I'm not going to read the definition in its entirety, but essentially public records are those records that are created in the transaction of public business. It doesn't matter what the format is. It could be emails, it could be text messages, it could be posts on social media, books, etc. I have highlighted the relevant portions here of the definition, and I do want to call out that it is not only for the town board and the town departments, but this would also apply to those records that are created by all of the appointed boards, committees, commissions, etc. So again, looking at the statutes, Section 132-B1 does note that public records belong to the people. That means that they can be requested by anyone. However, there are limitations. Nothing in the statutes require the town or any of its committees, commissions, departments, et cetera, to create records that do not exist. So if, for example, a list is requested from the town and we don't maintain that list, we are not required to create a record to respond to a public records request. Certain information is not considered public records under the statutes, and it also could be considered confidential per statute. I've listed here a few of the examples that would be considered non-public records and or confidential. That would be information protected by attorney-client privilege, including trial preparation materials, also tax information, enterprise billing information, electronic payment account numbers, proprietary information, criminal intelligence information, sensitive public security information. Also, we are not going to be giving out any social security numbers, so do not worry about that. Protected medical information, and also information that's contained in a personnel file. So when someone submits a public records request, town staff have to look at that information that they are seeking and make a determination as to whether or not what they are seeking can be released, or whether or not it is considered non-public record or confidential that must be redacted. And the typical redaction process requires review by not only the department from which the records are coming from, but also the town clerk and the town attorney to make sure that we are complying with state statutes. Each redaction has to be made manually. That is to say that we have to go through page by page and look at each page to make sure that we are not releasing something that cannot be released per law. So the town clerk compiled this information regarding the number of requests that we receive each year. Based on a 5-year average, the town receives 88 public records requests per year. As of May 2023, the town had received 35 requests. As of May 14th, 2024, the town has already received 43 requests. That is approximately a 23% increase in the number of public records that we have received this year from last year. So each public records request is not the same in terms of how complex it is or how many records that the request is going to produce. Rather, the breadth and complexity of the request vary. Most recently, we have seen an upwards trend in the number of broad, complex records requests that produce voluminous results due to the lack of specific search parameters being included in the request. So, for example, if we receive a request that does not have a specific date range, specific key terms to search for, any idea about where the record may be found, that adds to the complexity of the request. And it also, previous slide, please. So also the redaction process, again, requires multiple levels of review prior to us being able to reduce the records. So if we receive a very broad and complex request that has not been properly narrowed down with specific search terms, dates, et cetera, that can add to our standard response time. Due to the increased number, again, of these types of requests, our response time has increased. This slide lists out a couple of examples of recent requests that we have received and the redaction process associated to those requests. The first request that is highlighted on this email was a request for emails for a particular lieutenant's emails from the police department for a period of 3 months. The request did not include any keyword search terms. There were no specific topics that were being requested. This particular request resulted in approximately 4,200, that is 4,200 responsive records, including attachments, many of them duplicative, during the requested time period. That being the case, we had to go through each of those 4,200 documents and look to see what needed to be redacted. And as you can imagine, because this dealt with police information, a lot of the information that was contained in the records that came back was confidential or needed to be redacted because it contained non-public record information. On the flip side, another recent request that we received was for all communications related to the dedication of sidewalks, their maintenance and repair in a particular subdivision. Also, we were asked to produce information regarding removal, repair, or remediation of sewer cleanouts in the same subdivision. Finally, that request also wanted communications with developers, contractors, HOA, and property management, and minutes of public meetings. Upon first blush, when we first received this request for information, it was very broad. As you can see, they were asking for multiple different pieces of information. However, the town clerk was able to, as well as myself, reach out and work with the requester to narrow down the search terms, narrow down the date range, narrow down the specific types of information that they were seeking. Whereas in the original request, the requester refused to narrow down the request. Even with this reduced request with specific search terms and parameters, ultimately the second example here still produced approximately 4,500 documents that we still had to go through and make sure that they were being redacted properly, and that's with it being narrowed down. So pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 132-6.2 subsection B, a municipality is within its legal rights to charge for the actual cost of producing copies of public records, the cost for certification when producing certified public records,
costs for greater use of technology resources than available to the agency for the reproduction of such voluminous records, and also a special service charge based on the cost incurred for extensive use of information technology resources or the labor cost of personnel providing extensive clerical or supervisory assistance. This chart is based on research that the legal department did in terms of determining what a potential policy might look like. We did a survey, and by no means is this list exhaustive. There are many other jurisdictions across the state, whether they be at the county level or town level, that do have policies in place, as do various state departments, including the North Carolina Department of State Treasurer, the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, and also the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts, which is a judicial entity in North Carolina. As you can see from the chart, most of the special service charges start to accumulate after 4 hours of staff time being spent on the request. Mooresville is on the higher side. They have $38 per hour over 4 hours. Many that we saw had $18 per hour over 4 hours. Some of the jurisdictions that we saw even started charging the special service charge beginning at 2 hours or 3 hours. Another trend that we saw in the policies was that if it was over a certain estimated fee that would be accumulated or assessed, that the municipality or county would provide a fee estimate, and then the requester would have the opportunity to either move forward with the town fulfilling the request based on the estimated cost, or they could choose to narrow down their request to attempt to narrow down the fees that would be associated with the request. Also, another trend that we saw in most of the policies was not only was a fee estimate provided, but also a deposit would be required to ensure that once the work had been completed, that we were getting the advance deposit and then not releasing the records until the fee was paid in full.
And so the request tonight for this is the new public records policy and fee schedule. Most of the responses to public record requests will continue to be produced in electronic format and be free to the requester. We believe that probably 80 to 85% of what we currently get would be that way. Requests requiring extensive use of information technology and/or extensive clerical or supervisory staff time will be assessed, and an information technology fee and/or special service fee charge, whichever may apply. The special service charge will be $18 per hour for time expended on the request in excess of 4 hours and may be prorated. Again, as Ms. Sloop mentioned, fee estimates will be provided for requests that are estimated to exceed $25 in assessed fee, and then a 50% deposit will be required for requests that exceed $50. And I'll be happy to make a motion, and we can have a discussion.
Do we have any questions? Commissioner Hunt?
So does this deter people from requesting public records, or does it just incentivize them to be specific?
I would say that it won't deter people from making requests. Hopefully, they can be more specific. We had a request for all of the emails from a former elected official, which came out to 34,000 records. The staff is going to take months and months fulfilling that request. And we did reach out to this person to try and get them to, what are you after? Let us help you. But it was just, this is what I want. So I think what we're doing is protecting the taxpayers' money in this particular case. So no, we expect those to continue on. A lot of people are very targeted in what they request. They're usually pretty easy to fulfill. But again, we'll work up to 4 hours on that.
Commissioner Rivers?
And so an estimate currently right now with the request, the public records request, what are we looking at percentage-wise? I know you just stated, 85% that are getting it free at this moment, right?
Sorry, I was on mute. There are no fees currently associated, but even with the implementation of the policy as drafted and the new fee schedule, still approximately 80 to 85%, as estimated by our town clerk, will remain free as far as their production cost.
Okay, that's what I needed.
Commissioner Bergsman?
Can you go back to one of the, I think it was one of the last slides that had the descriptions of when special service charges are, yes. So my question is kind of in relation to the fourth point on there. And I'm just wondering if there's any kind of definition on what constitutes the clerical or supervisory assistance.
There is no specific definition that is set forth in the general statutes. Rather, in doing our research, we looked again at different municipalities, and the approach that we took was to take the middle ground in terms of the cost that would be applied, and also the middle ground as to when the cost would start applying. So as you saw on the grid, or I would say table that included the information about previous the other policies from jurisdictions across North Carolina, on that table, if you were able to switch back to that, you can see that several of them start charging in over 2 hours. However, we looked at the other municipalities, including state agencies, and it seems that the average is 4 hours to start charging that and being considered excessive.
Thanks. And I do have just one more. Because I've kind of looked at this almost as like a snowball effect. I mean, we want to be very careful because public records are people's records. And, I don't discount that. That's very important to me. But I've noticed in the last few months where we've had multiple requests in that are smaller, that have very specific with, it's very clear what's being asked. But I feel, and this is where I want to be corrected if I'm wrong, that there have been delays in responding to multiple public records requests because of the time that's spent on these very broad dozens of thousands of emails, that this is also impacting other residents in the community who have these smaller requests.
Correct. I don't want to put words in our town clerk's mouth, but, and she can jump in if she feels the need, but my understanding, and then looking at the requests that I've had to review, yes, the breadth and complexity, we've seen an upwards trend. More of the requests that are coming in do not include the specific search terms. Many of them do, you're correct, and those are the ones that can be responded to much quicker by the town clerk. But if we receive these broad, complex requests that don't include the specific search terms, that don't include specific date ranges, that don't include which department we should look to gather the information, that's where some of these smaller requests that would typically be very easy to fulfill and do very quickly, they're sometimes falling by the wayside because we are continuing to work on those very large, broad, complex requests. I know that Janet does try, if she sees one that is easy to respond to not penalize that person and make them wait behind the other very broad, complex ones, but that's not always doable depending on her schedule and workload.
Commissioner Quarles?
Will these fees apply to residents as well as media, or residents and not media?
As drafted, and this is similar to the other policies that we saw, the requirements that are found within the policy will apply equally across the board, no matter who the requester is.
Yeah, I asked that because we know that there are some people that may have friends in the media, and they may use that route to say, okay, so-and-so, would you please contact the town of Huntersville for records requests, and try to get around it through a loophole. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Bergsman?
I just wanted to verify that. Okay, so say someone submits the form and it looks like it's going to be, an estimated 8 to 10 hours of work. Are we still going to provide them the opportunity to kind of go back and, make a few changes to narrow in on what they're actually looking for?
Correct. So you'll see in the drafted policy that there is a form that is called a fee estimate form that will go out to the requester detailing the cost that is estimated if it's over $25 as the estimated fee. And at that time, they can either issue a notice to proceed with the request and fulfilling it and that they acknowledge the fee as estimated, or they can then choose to narrow down the scope of their request or alter their request before moving forward.
Any other questions? Just for folks who may not know, we have our clerk, Janet, who does most of the majority of the work on this, and our town attorney, who also does the majority of the work on this. So that's 2 people reviewing, 34,000 emails, 5,000 emails at a time. So just so everyone knows, that's a huge burden on our staff. So may I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the new public records policy and fee schedule.
May I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. And now we're on to item 11, closing comments. Commissioner Rivers. No. Commissioner Walsh.
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Dumas. Mayor Pro Tem Hunt. Commissioner Quarles.
No.
Commissioner Bergsman. Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
May I
A
have
second.
any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right. The motion